Welcome to the Transcendental YouTube channel, Receiving Love. This piece is written by Lisa Renee of energeticsynthesis.com, and if you would like to hear it read in her own voice, please visit the link in the video description box below. If you like a faster audio reading pace, then stay here. If you need a slower pace, then visit the link provided. Lisa also has her own powerful YouTube channel, which is linked below as well, and contains very important informational videos. So, if you're still with me, let's begin. Dear Ascending Family, this month we are attempting to comprehend the social engineering that shapes Earth-based human culture into an anti-human, anti-life or death culture. Until we have an accurate assessment of where this is coming from, we cannot take responsibility for our part in it, or shift out of it into true freedom and conscious co-creation. It has recently become clear that all crimes against humanity perpetrated in this last cycle will be known on the higher planes and intergalactic communities. Those who operate behind the scenes with impunity on Earth, who feel above the natural law, are on record. May we be supported in moving toward greater disclosure and truth, while embodied here, to support the full realignment with the natural laws of this universe, both individually and collectively. Upon deeper reflection, most people have some intrinsic awareness about the natural laws and the consequences of actions that occur when violating laws of nature. Most people will follow natural laws as plain common sense in order to avoid pain, such as knowing that if they ignore the law of gravity, and step off a cliff, it is highly likely they will cause pain to themselves or die, or that if they disregard the law of thermodynamics and touch a hot stove, they will burn their hand and it will hurt. As a result of these immediate and dire consequences of cause and effect, people follow the natural laws most of the time in their day-to-day, and they do not need an authority to tell them to follow these laws to ensure compliance. However, when the cause and effect of a natural law is not immediately recognized or understood, because it is separated by time and space for a length of time, many people easily violate the laws of nature, and ignore the consequences of doing so. If the human population could comprehend that repeatedly violating the laws of nature is directly associated with the destructive consequences of the long-term cause and effect of co-creating, with the anti-human or death culture that currently displays the massive pain and suffering in our world, would we take steps to stop it? Re-educating people to recognize human value, virtue-based ethics and to have respect for life, means that we also reorganize the social structures that shape our culture to support life by following the natural laws. The current global society is founded upon the anti-human ideology that originated from the reptilian mind, a mind of selfishness, greed, and instant gratification that is violating every law of nature. Common sense tells us if we continue to violate the laws of nature through the same 3D systems that function without regard for human life, earth, or nature, it leads to only one conclusion: the eventual death, destruction, ignorance, and genetic deterioration of the human species. Rather than hoard seeds, genetic material, and technology in locked hermetically sealed underground vaults at the North Pole, and publicize to the masses that the space program is sending humans to Mars to ensure the survival of the human race. Have we considered why the global elite will not cooperate with disclosure, and put an end to this insane anti-human death culture from destroying the planet? Why are trillions of dollars being funneled to establish Mars colonies, which already exist, when those massive resources could go towards helping to heal the people on the Earth? Humanity must change the way that they think, and learn from the mistakes that have been made by co-creating and allowing the death culture to be the dominate culture, and what we expose our children and future generations to. By acknowledging that we are not alone in this world, anytime we attempt to achieve larger goals, we will have to learn how to communicate and cooperate with others in more positive ways. We build caring, connected, and successful relationships by behaving with virtue-based ethics, which build strong moral character. People are made strong through the consistency of ethical conduct, adhering to transparency and trustworthiness, while focusing on the greater well-being and positive objectives of the entire group. This is the cornerstone of building a humanitarian-based culture of world humanism and recognizing that human ethics, morality, and virtues have nothing to do with the oppressive religious beliefs, or the self-indignant forms of confirmation bias, that are used to shame humans into submission to angry gods. Virtue-based ethics are the core principles that are based in following the universal natural laws, which are needed to stop violating every law of nature. Humanity needs to be re-educated to learn the consequences and effects that have occurred in the world today, that are based upon the lack of ethics that exists in the current death culture. If we cannot identify and recognize the lack of ethics that exists in the death culture, we will not be able to fully dismantle its diseased social structure, as it has grown like a deadly virus to infect and pervade every area of earthly life. Effectively, this is an essay to study and comprehend the social engineering put in place that shapes Earth-based human culture into an anti-human death culture. Engineering that violates every law of nature, for the purpose of alien genetic modification, hybridization, and the intended extinction of the original blueprint of the human race. Death culture. The current 3D timeline in which humans have existed on the Earth over the last 100 years, has been socially engineered through technological mind control, violent entertainment, and predictive programming in the media to promote a death culture. Social engineering is a type of mind control that seeks to manipulate people from their own right to privacy, by controlling the way they access information. Controlling what it means to be knowledgeable and self-informed, so the fabricated social structure can exploit them with misinformation, making it easier to take control of their behaviors. Thus, today, many people are unable to identify and recognize the clear signs of death culture programming, as a result of the controller anti-soul agendas, because it has been interwoven into many of the day-to-day structures that make up the fabric of society. Why do the controller structures promote and financially reward all organizations and media that promote death culture programming into our world? Death culture produces the myopic mental polarization of attention upon purely physical sensations and material pursuits. It does not look deeper towards taking any responsibility. There is no accountability, moral or ethical consideration towards the consequences of actions that are directly related to increasing world pain and human suffering. Instead, the mainstream death culture programming thrives in producing, marketing, and exploiting human suffering, pain and trauma, therefore, spreading the destructive lifestyles that lead to mass killing, disease and slavery. If we cannot identify or recognize how the death culture programming has generated great harm to impact our personal lives, children, families, communities, businesses, and nations, we will not understand what we must change inside ourselves in order to heal our society. Death culture is an anti-life society driven by the rejection of all things spiritual, and having no reverence or regard for life. Anti-life cultures refuse to recognize the sentience of soul, deny the purpose of life interrelated to higher consciousness evolution, as well as eliminate moral principles and considerations of the long-term consequences of mass-produced harm and killing. It seeks to remove the fundamental humanitarian ethics away from what is deemed scientifically proven as hard facts, as the only source of credible knowledge or higher truth. Death culture is explicitly designed to reject the inherent consciousness existence of all living things and eliminate the possibility that they are spiritual, energetic, or intelligent entities, therefore, rejecting them as sentient beings. If humans cannot perceive the sentience within living things, the myopic mind justifies reckless harm and killing for business, even for sport or for personal pleasure. There is a denial of the energetic costs of great suffering, which are not ethically or morally considered. The anti-life society is founded upon having no value or purpose for life, and thus has no remorse for the suffering of sentient beings. Thus the more emotionally traumatized, weakened, and mind-controlled people are, the more easily they are led into committing murder, and carrying out the alien handlers' many violent crimes against humanity. There is no empathic value for the human bodies and animals, which they discard as easily as any other consumer product. Death and killing becomes impersonal, we do not stop to feel the implication of the painful suffering that lives on. Mass murders and death are not emotionally processed, to know that those victims also had loved ones, any one of which could have been your wife or husband, your child, mother, or father. Death culture is used to promote the destructive lifestyles of the archontic deception strategies, in order to permanently damage the heart, soul, and brain into dissociation. Dissociative behaviors eliminate all traces of true human empathy and remove the accountability towards the ethical implications that are behind the operations of the world's social, political, military, corporate structures. Internal walls of separation. When people are mind-controlled to believe that this is the only life there is, and that there is no purpose, that there is no intelligent consciousness energy that transforms into another plane during the death of the physical vehicle, many exist in the disconnected black void, which generates the internal walls of the separative state. In the human energy field, the result of emotional trauma from the damaged heart center can be observed as internal walls of separation, that fragment the mind and consciousness body. These internal walls are generated in the human energy field from self-rejection, painful emotional trauma and destructive harm that results in splitting or dissociation. It is the goal of Satanists to purposely generate these internal walls of separation in order to spread trauma-based mind control, alternate personalities, and dissociative states, in people that easily accept the death culture. These internal walls are generated most easily during early childhood, and therefore this makes children the targets of these satanic forms of severe abuse. Growing this state of separation from childhood to adulthood, makes it much easier to allow the fear-based thought forms of the death culture to take total control over the person's unconscious impulses and conscious mind. Without gaining control over their unconscious mind and conscious thought forms, people are deeply programmed to accept and carry out the death culture and victimization agendas in every area of their lives. Some of these destructive agendas are subliminally carried out in extremely compartmentalized layers of the corporate cultures, that model the accepted standards of behavior that contribute to the social and psychological environments. Many times people have no idea of the lack of ethics and corruption they are actually involved with, when in business the real bottom line is always about product and profitability over human ethics and moral considerations. What they are supporting is masked behind faceless corporate entities with massive power structures, all feeding into the frenzy of profits in the death culture. Secrets thrive in multiple layers of compartmentalization, rank and pay grades throughout organizations. For strategic obfuscation, it blurs the lines so the right hand does not know what the left hand is doing, and refuses to ask another in a power position for an explanation to ensure accountability. The internal walls of separation that have been built inside the energy body of humans, have also been built as the energetic foundation in many of the secretive corporate cultures and organizations to which we are exposed. We coexist in the psychological and emotional terrain of psychotic levels of mass manipulation, committing fraud and deception, while rewarding the people that can monetize it and navigate between the legal loopholes. Most dictators and despots responsible for the most brutal crimes against humanity, such as directing the weapons of genocide, eugenics, poisoning and drug experimentation against the public, were committing these crimes in ways that were perfectly legal at that time. Whose interests are to increase human suffering? Humanity has been groomed and continually conditioned to behave in accordance with the low standards of morality and ethics, that the death culture has set, as the dominant social structure. These values are modeled over and over and over, which human beings learn from a very young age. We may naively believe that our global society grants others moral consideration, when taking into account humanity's larger interest, to reduce suffering and increase the quality of life. But it is clear that the current system, of multinational corporate political control, and its unlimited power, is designed to greatly increase human suffering in all ways, and to monetize and gain from its impact. The belief system generated in the social political corporate culture is that you are either the victim or the victimizer, so you better do what it takes to be on the top rungs of the ladder of the hierarchy, so that you will not be subjected to what happens to those on the bottom rungs of the hierarchy. As people are desensitized to the constant barrage of these mass dehumanization agendas, extortion, blackmail and murder become the price to pay for running successful businesses, maintaining the duplicity for marketing public appearances, for everyday survival, or even just personal convenience. Death culture applauds and rewards those organizations, which grossly benefit from the suffering of those on the bottom hierarchy. Multiple billion-dollar businesses based on child porn, sexual slavery, or exploiting forms of violence, or dehumanization, that serve the NAA global objectives, seem to easily escape public scrutiny, accountability, or legal prosecution. The manifestation of the death culture is evidenced in the extremely low quality of human well-being that plagues our global society, in the high incidence of poverty, slavery, drug addiction, rape, child trafficking, pedophilia, depression, anguish, suicide and mass murder. Over the last 100 years, the death culture has become the central dynamic that underlies the controller structure. It is the dominant influence behind the global social order. This anti-human social order spins out the mainstream media narratives, for gaining full acceptance for the corporate profit made on the backs of the suffering of the human race during wars, mass murdering, sickness, imprisonment and slavery. Death culture is the currency of power that is behind many worldwide industries that spread destructive lifestyles through mandatory government compliance, for the people to be in consent with unethically manufactured products, that lead to even more human suffering and death. Redefining sentience by quantifying world suffering. Death culture inherently rejects any topics that would include credible conversations, in the larger global communities, around redefining the nature of sentience, consciousness, spirit, soul, and intelligent energy, as essential factors that make up human beings and exist independently of religion. These important factors of redefining sentience and consciousness, in relationship to quantifying the nature of suffering as it exists in the worldscape, must be addressed in order to truly comprehend the massive problems that humanity faces today, that are the result of the anti-human culture. The skyrocketing global statistics of human trafficking, sexual slavery, pedophilia, mental diseases, addiction, rape and violent crimes across the world, tell us very clearly that the current corrupt systems in power, are not put there to serve humanitarian interests. Essentially, corporate conglomerates driving world economies, are allowed to pay for board positions, in the regulating authorities tasked with enforcing safety policies in their own industries. While they can legally bribe associated political powers, that continually lobby to negate corporate accountability, to the moral and ethical considerations that should be made for ensuring humanity's well-being and future. If we dehumanize people by stripping them of sentience and soul, we treat them as faceless numbers, or only as consumers for profit, we reject their humanity and dignity to make them appear subhuman. It's much easier for people to commit harm against others when they think of people as faceless numbers in the sea of masses, subhuman, or totally separate from them. All living things have sentient consciousness, and the pain and suffering that occurs while in the body continues to occur while out of the body, especially when that pain remains unrecognized, hidden and unhealed. The physical body of all living things is the repository that holds some type of sentient soul consciousness, and makes up an energetic spiritual body, that is interconnected to larger collective consciousness bodies. Therefore, the energetic and spiritual consequences of destructive actions, those dark actions that intend to generate harm, suffering and emotional trauma in the human race, do not leave the physical realm just because the body has expired. When a person, animal, or living thing is harmed, or killed traumatically, and suffers, the energetic result and vibration of that harm and suffering is embedded into the memory of the earth body, and the memory of that person and all those interconnected with them. The energetic result of that unhealed pain can also attach itself to the pain body of many other people, or if it's a massive global trauma, it impacts the entire species' memory. Clearly understand that the spiritual energetic implication of all human torture and pain inflicted on life forms, no matter how big or small, is recorded in the earth field, and this information does not clear, transit or neutralize, until that pain is witnessed and spiritually healed. Imagine how this accumulative pain as an energetic thing, impacts the well-being and sanity of the people on this earth, who are not aware that this collective pain is connected to how they feel every day. Could this be symptomatic of the massive epidemic of pain-numbing drugs that millions are addicted to, just to relieve some of their suffering? Cycle of pain: problem, reaction, and deceitful solution. It is important to realize the cycle of emotional pain, and human suffering, is perpetuated repeatedly from those groups of people that have endured tragic pain. This leaves the imprint and residue of that pain, to be carried by the family lineage, and the rest of the human race that is on the earth, That pain continues to accumulate in the earth and the human race, until the cause of the cycle of pain and suffering is identified, recognized, and cleared from the earth and the people. The cause of pain and suffering must be identified, in order to stop the painful recycling of previously recorded pain, which if left hidden, continues to recycle and generate even more pain and suffering consciousness fields back into the earth. It is impossible to find effective solutions for human suffering and pain, when the people are deceived, and given misinformation, by those who protect their selfish interests. We cannot inoculate disease and starvation, end war, and senseless killing, and stop co-creating the world to increase human suffering and slavery, until we get to the real cause and root of the problem. Real solutions start with full disclosure and global transparency. Solutions will not work when they are created from misinformation, and carried out by those who are compromised by committing fraud, deceit, and manipulation of the public, to engineer the death culture. The accumulated intent to cause grievous harm, pain, and suffering, against any individual, species or planet, manifests as an energetic consciousness fields, that holds the historical record of events in the blueprint. The consciousness blueprint of the earth and humanity is protected in a series of holographic discs, which record and describe the entire history, as well as whom and what was involved. Many people on the earth are responsible for the pain they generate, which they must learn to balance, and then there are those who are egregiously exploited. The collective pain body converts itself into planetary miasma, and this is like toxic waste. This waste product, when it's not cleaned up, can cause many diseases, and harmful genetic mutations to manifest in the future generations, as well as in nature and animals. For those who do not experience seeing and feeling the direct suffering, and pain of humanity, and animals, who have died in extremely agonizing ways at the hands of others, I am here to tell you, this is recorded in the earth fields. It is being observed and recorded, and the information is indestructible. All crimes against humanity perpetrated in this last cycle, will be seen and known on the higher planes, and intergalactic communities. Any person or entity on Earth that believes that their destructive actions and plans for conspiring to produce grievous harm against humanity on the Earth, will remain unseen and hidden, in the web of complex cover-ups, is mistaken. This information is collected and retrieved by many of us that have been sent to this Earth for this reason. Another purpose behind the death culture, is to generate as much human harm and suffering as possible, in order to convert that suffering into methods that monetize pain, by offering expensive solutions that exploit desperate people. Temporary and deceitful solutions are mass-marketed to address human pain and suffering, to people that are usually marginalized and disadvantaged, and may include gross financial extractions into large debt, perpetuating the addiction cycle, and then leading them into complete submission to further dehumanization agendas. This formula of problem, reaction, and then providing a deceitful solution, produces more human suffering, and makes it easy for dark entities to exploit the person's consciousness bodies. This creates a dissociated human body, functioning as an energetic shell, that is used for enforcing consciousness enslavement. By continuing to blindly support the death culture, it further spreads more harm and suffering into the world, in order to produce a desperate and despairing population, that is easily controlled and manipulated. Proponents of the death culture. Death cultures across the world hold general beliefs that life is meaningless, or the physical body is meaningless, therefore, nothing in the world or in the physical realm has any true purpose or value. Some of the proponents of the death culture would say that killing a person, killing children, or animals, murdering or raping any kind of life form is ultimately, neither right nor wrong, because morality and ethics are non-existent. Other proponents of the death culture may say that blood sacrifice, or killing other people and living things in the name of their god, are pious actions that will get them to nirvana in the afterlife. If we enlarge our perspective to include the na, or off-planet satanics, those who share this same sentiment of death culture in regards to promoting their destructive agendas impacting humanity and all of Earth, they simply treat humanity like we treat farm and laboratory animals. Many people in high positions of power, also treat humans like farm animals, or a commodity to be exploited in any way for profit. The predator mind belief systems run the mind control programs of death culture, which allows these interdimensional entities to easily abduct, experiment, genetically modify, have sex with children and traumatize the unaware citizens of the earth to live in the lowest vibrations of survival, victimizer consciousness, and spiritual poverty. These dark entities have no value for the earth or humanity beyond harvesting its energy resources, because the basic principles of morality, ethics, and interconnection with sentient intelligence are non-existent to them as a relative truth. They look at humans solely as their food and energy source, the same way many humans may look to the necessity of the cow, pig, and chicken slaughterhouses, or injecting diseases into laboratory animals. This is a sobering thought when humanity comes to finally realize, we have been complicit with co-creating the death culture in the world society, which has allowed many more off-planet predators to aggressively infiltrate the people in power and exploit the entire planet even further. Certainly the NAA holds the belief that having sex with children and torturing human beings is without value or consequence for any of the pain and trauma that is caused by their deceptive and destructive actions, either in the short or long term. They feel they have the right to treat humans in any way that serves them, just like a human may expect to have rights to take ownership of some kind of property. It is important to remember, as above so below, and the NAA carry out their destructive agendas on the earth, because humans let them in by not recognizing what they are participating with. When we see something labeled as performance art that depicts cannibalism, throwing pig's blood on the walls, and glorifying torture or sex with children, we can no longer call that performance art. It is Satanism, period. It has a harmful agenda behind it no matter what label it has. Free right to expression should not include perpetrating harm or deception, with intent to steal power and manipulate control over others. Through social engineering, the design for humanity is to accept the death culture as the organic result of humanity's inherently degenerate nature. Humans are brainwashed to believe in original sin, and that degenerate behaviors, as sourcing from humans, when non-humans are explicitly involved. Why would any sane human seek to create destructive images of killing its own species and having sex with its own children as an art form? The answer is, those behind this agenda to make humans suffer are not human. As humans continue to carry out the death culture belief system to justify the hatred that accepts the killing, victimization, and exploitation of other humans, these satanic forces infiltrate and control more of the people of the earth, especially those in positions of power. Moral nihilism. The preponderance of moral nihilistic belief in science and society has generalized thought forms that are used to promote and spread the death culture in humanity. It explains morality as a complicated set of constructed rules designed to potentially gain control or take advantage over others in some way, but that morality is without universal consequence and is not a relative truth in any sense. Thus, humans lapse into errors in judgment when thinking in moral terms, because there are no moral features in this world, as nothing is right or wrong. The primary worship of materialism and all types of addictions to the sensations of the flesh, are the main characteristics of Satanism and how it operates to enslave others in the larger fields of collective consciousness. The depravity of such addicted individuals reveal narcissistic to psychopathic profiles. Many perceive themselves as self-entitled to use other people as worthless objects to satisfy their base desires. Many will exert dominating forms of aggression to intimidate and control, or to further annihilate any living thing, including children or people that get in the way of agendas that promote selfish gratifications and personal power. Satanics are stuck in the time and space of the earth body, unable to evolve beyond being controlled by their base impulses and many addictions to the material world, like vampires desperately thirsting to prey on others in order to satisfy their never-ending cravings. Like any drug addict, in order to get their addictive craving quenched, they sink into the endless cycles of addiction while they further descend into the bottomless pit of depravity and corruption. The energetic field of such a person appears to be completely derelict and grotesque, where the remnant of the person that is left, is continually haunted by the shadows that force them to act in servitude to these agendas run by the collective dark forces. Death culture is effective in mass producing, marketing and amplifying an array of negative forces generated for the pain, suffering and torture of humanity, and is a socio-political tool used to cultivate human suffering, and convert the energy it generates, to continue to enforce the enslavement of the human race. The current governance in the world culture is based on the false pretense of promoting anti-soul agendas that are socially engineered by the power elite, at the behest of serving the alien handlers' off-planet interests. If we apply the scientific definition of sentience to represent only that which exists in the material realm, that can be perceived by the five physical senses, effectively we live in a dominate world culture that maintains we are all separate. That all people experience themselves as fully disconnected from the sentient intelligence that exists within all life. Humanity is consistently influenced towards glorifying a death culture, and consistently mind-controlled to believe that we are fully disconnected from other people. This enforces the belief system that we have no ethical or moral responsibility towards caring for other people, animals, nature, and seeking to improve the conditions in which we live. The majority of people descend into promoting survival instincts, and flesh sensory experiences, that generate unethical, immoral actions based in self-destruction, while people in power endorse selfish greed so that they can maintain power and control over the population. We share this world with many other life forms that we can physically see, and cannot physically see, yet these life forms are not included by mainstream science as life forms having sentient intelligence, or as entities that have souls. How would the ideas of moral nihilism be impacted if humans could feel the pain they create in others, and feel the suffering consciousness of every living creature? To experience the fear and pain created when that creature is brutalized at the hand of others, to feel the pain of living creatures when they die exposed to extreme states of cruelty? And to know that this pain and cruelty does not leave when the body is killed, it stays there in the land, in the sentient field, right where the act of brutality occurred, until unconditional love cleanses it. In truth, this is my greatest wish, that all humans on the earth, that brutalize others through destructive actions, could feel the painful results they have created in the world, as the suffering we see in the world is caused from their own choice to repeatedly carry out destructive actions. Once you truly know how intense the suffering, genetic deterioration, and slavery caused in the world is, a sane person does not want to create any more harm. This has nothing to do with mental judgments of right or wrong, or self-indignant morality. It is a universal truth. Imagining the life culture of world humanism. Imagine we lived in a world where all people wanted to live in harmony with the natural laws. Therefore, all people were treated with love, dignity, and respect, to be equally educated in creating balanced and holistic lifestyle with others. Others who also choose to live in a world based in love, peace, and unified cooperation, where everyone is supported, to actualize their greatest evolutionary potential, and inner creative genius. Imagine we lived in a world where fundamental human needs were the basic right for all people of the earth, and that the global society worked together to create a more benevolent and peaceful world, a world without war, mass murder, slavery, religious violence, and tyrannical oppression. That the world goal was to apply humanistic ethical philosophy, blended with universal principles of the law of one, to expand consciousness, which inspires that these fundamental human needs are necessary, and to be met for all human beings on the earth. Imagine that we co-create the world where humanity placed the highest value on ethical conduct and authentic leadership, and only allowed those spiritually developed people that consistently demonstrated honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness in communications and truth-telling, who were competent in their areas of expertise, to be of service to the population. Our leadership would not perform actions opposed to their understanding or have understanding, which was not expressed by their actions. Their combined activities coordinated to lead the people to unified goals based on the same core humanitarian values. These true humanitarian leaders and visionaries could help bring in the learning sanctuaries that are available to all people, and would focus on uniting others, wholeness, healing, self-leadership and fulfillment for everyone in the community. Our learning, healing, creative arts and spiritual sanctuaries would be dedicated towards humanity's higher knowledge and furthering consciousness development and exploration, would have unlimited resources to give to the future development of our children, species, and to support the unique purpose and consciousness signature that is inside of each person. Imagine that all people are valued for their unique contribution and from birth, have the available resources to develop and expand themselves in their unique areas of interest or fields of expertise. Imagine that our communities and societies are founded upon organizational policies and programs that are based in shared humanitarian values of co-creating world humanism, shaping our communities through modeling behaviors such as unified cooperation and service to others, loving kindness, compassion, and empathy, respect, dignity, and harmlessness for all, honesty, integrity, truth, and transparency, fairness, forgiveness, and humility, consciousness expansion, higher learning, and synchronicity, co-creating responsibly with Earth, nature, and animals, legitimate admittance to participate with the intergalactic community. World humanism is based in the re-education of human value, which emphasizes the importance of shifting anti-human ideological beliefs, such as the death culture, into humanist-based ethics and related philosophical and egalitarian principles. All human beings deserve humane treatment in order to live upon the planet with dignity, with basic access to meet their fundamental human needs. Our goal is to apply humanistic ethical philosophy, blended with the spiritual egalitarian principles of the Law of One, to expand consciousness, which inspires direct knowledge or gnosis of direct consciousness, and awakening experiences. Mainstream humanism defines itself distinctly as the disconnection of the human being from its inherent spiritual energetic intelligence or soul, in an attempt to remove the concept of humanism away from the learned bias and practices of religion. It is impossible to separate humanity from its sentient soul body, and truly practice an ethical-based humanism aligned to natural laws. Once direct knowledge of the sentient soul consciousness is known as a reality, this fact is experienced without the need to control others through religious bias, or conform to religious rhetoric or scientific atheistic judgments. Ascension essentially encompasses a universal perspective towards the compassionate practice of world humanism, and includes the entire spectrum of life, of all inhabitants of the world no matter what race, religion, belief, or creed, to be equally deserving of benevolence, empathy, and compassion. These are some of the clear examples of how other advanced races beyond our solar system coexist and live together, that are actively participating with the intergalactic community and interdimensional free worlds. The inhabitants of Earth are fully excluded, until these global problems of destructive violence and world suffering are directly acknowledged and steps are taken for disclosure. Disclosure is what is required to end wars, and stop directing covert and overt militant weaponry that is used to mind control the population, as well as perform senseless killing. It is true that based upon the clear evidence of continued violent warring, weaponry and destructive behaviors, some in the intergalactic community believe the people of the Earth are criminals and hybrids that should remain sequestered in this system of consciousness imprisonment. Many are wary and distrustful of the people that come from the Earth. I hope someday the people of the Earth will rise to change that perception. Virtue-based ethics. Virtue-based ethics emphasizes the focus upon developing virtues which strengthen the mind and character, and in our interpretation are the basis of building the strength of the spiritual foundation. This is critical for the light body to hold higher consciousness and universal knowledge, which leads to spiritual freedom. More simply, a virtue can also be defined as a character trait that is positive. Expressing those virtuous qualities causes more positivity to ripple out into the world, which is the direct result of that person's behavior. When a person expresses virtuous qualities in their behaviors and interactions with others, it contributes to the co-creation of personal well-being and happiness, and also helps others to reach that feeling of well-being. In the spiritual context, this is experienced as blessings, feeling a blessedness that guides your path forward, which allows the human being to flourish and feel happiness and contentment in their life. The sentient intelligence of the soul spirit, if we listen, will always lead us to express many kinds of higher quality virtues. Because the soul's purpose is to guide each person to experience their own fulfillment of spiritual purpose, and to flourish in peace and contentment, while developing the deeper connection with higher consciousness. We create the state of well-being, happiness, peace, and contentment in our life, when we have disciplined ourselves to achieve the natural flow of expression, of the higher qualities of virtues and ethics that allow the person to succeed, and fulfill their higher purpose. Another way to express this is that when a person practices virtue-based ethics in every area of their life, no matter what difficulty, adversity, or challenge comes their way, they can defeat the obstacles in their path, through the dedicated practice of expressing, behaving, and committing to the strengthening of virtue-based ethics. The state of success as measured in the material world, as material power or resources, is not the same as fulfilling one's spiritual purpose in life. Many times we can observe people that have gained vast material wealth, power, and influence, and yet they remain unfulfilled, unhappy, and lost in life. Achieving our spiritual purpose, and being able to support the aims of our spiritual purpose, being able to share and spread virtuous qualities with others, is the key to peace, happiness, and fulfillment, with or without material or monetary rewards. Through the life experiences that are led by the soul spirit, to achieve one's spiritual purpose by developing strength of character and strength of the spiritual body, that person is led through experiential knowledge, which is also called Gnostic knowledge. Gnostic knowledge cannot be taken away once it has been achieved. By living through the experiences, the knowledge gained from that experience becomes an embodiment, an attribute, and quality of that person's consciousness development of gaining higher knowledge through the expression of many virtues. When a person authentically expresses, and communicates their understanding of inner knowledge and virtues, that they have gained through life experiences, they cannot act in opposition to what they know. When they live to fulfill their spiritual purpose, this is essentially the same as living in truth. The virtuous person is who they are in every moment, that behavior which is natural to their expression, and there is no need to represent themselves in any opposition to what they truly are. This is similar to viewing nature. A bird behaves like itself, and it does not pretend to be something that it is not. The central feature of virtuous qualities is that they are applicable to the spiritual fulfillment of purpose that is universally regarded as virtuous qualities for all sentient beings, in any kind of setting they exist. However, a character trait that may be regarded by a culture that discriminates in its views on gender, race, or other factors, are not included as qualities that apply to the universality of virtue-based ethics. When we develop the strength of character, in which we are in the process of fulfilling our purpose, we can more easily perceive the right or erroneous actions of our behavior, through our intention to not harm others. Gaining discernment about our ethical conduct, is to take right action in the world, and that we consider the consequences of our actions on the short and longer term. What is the consequential impact of our actions on the people around us, and the natural environment? Are the actions we take of benefit to the people, or a detriment? Inquiring on the consequential impact that our actions have on others, is taking personal responsibility and being accountable to our actions. People should realize that the origin of virtue-based ethics or concepts of morality are not based in the judgments and biases of religious interpretation, but is the ancient knowledge based on the natural interpretation of the natural laws. It is time to dispel the myth that religious dogma and judgments from God are the source of virtue-based ethics, that have been used to guilt and shame people in order to control them. Virtues, ethics, and morality do not originate from religion or spirituality, and thus the true knowledge of virtue-based ethics should be no different for atheists, agnostics, religious, spiritual or any other person. The origin is within the natural laws of creation and thus, governs all of humanity in achieving their highest purpose of personal fulfillment. We exist within multidimensional layers of electromagnetic fields, with billions of harmonic waves resonating within and around us. Our mind, our consciousness, our thought forms, are the interaction in between these waves that are producing qualities of sound, tone and color. Each belief or thought we have produces resonances in the larger fields that are harmonizing or discordant. Our brain and mental body is structured upon these harmonic waves, and thus our mind must conform to, and develop within the laws of nature, which are the morphogenetic fields that form the instruction sets, the blueprint of higher thought or spiritual knowledge. When we align our mind to harmonize with the blueprint that holds the intelligent information for fulfilling our highest purpose, we strengthen the color waves that connect to the larger unified field, and our purpose begins to reveal itself to us clearly. We will be continually led into the natural flow of right action, considering the ethical conduct for consequential impacts, and developing virtuous qualities that benefit the whole. How these virtues and ethics are arranged and expressed have universal application. But they are also specific to the heart-based spiritual qualities that each unique soul and spirit is striving to learn, express or evolve, as their consciousness moves in between time and space to experience life, and a particular station of identity. Virtues and ethics are the foundation of a storehouse of experienced knowledge and truth, and for each of us, we must explore that content inside our own heart, spirit, and relationship to the universe. GSF behavior, God sovereign free. Many philosophers of ancient wisdom have written in-depth treatises on ethics, morality, and virtues, and most all of it has basis in following universal natural laws, which are guidance mechanisms left for the people. However, there can be no strict adherence to exacting labels that try to define and describe the nature of ethics, as all aspects can be interpreted differently by each and every person. That is why each person must find the true meaning of virtue-based ethics in the contents of their own heart and soul. An inspirational quote by Marcus Aurelius demonstrates the value of making a difference through being ethical. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. And with that to consider, we leave you with another guidance mechanism of GSF behavior, which applies to the cosmic sovereign law of one, for continued inspiration to make a difference in the world every day and to fulfill your true purpose in life. GSF, empathy and compassion. We feel connection to life, and have compassion and kindness for others that feel pain, because we can empathize and relate to sensory feelings and emotions. We care about what happens to life, whether it's earth, human beings, animals, nature, plants, or trees. We realize that we are a part of something larger, and have kindness for ourselves and others, as this end cycle is very challenging for many. With this compassionate understanding, we do not allow intentional harm or self-martyrdom in our sphere of influence. GSF, mental openness. We are able to consider and be open to many different ways of being, thinking, or life philosophy without feeling threatened, defensive or sarcastic. This is a state of non-judgment. Discoveries and new learning opportunities are valued as desirable and supported in others. Mental flexibility for greater intelligence and creative problem solving is available for the mutual beneficial exchanging of ideas. Mental openness allows intuitive development and higher sensory perception. GSF, emotional stability. We accept emotional states as impermanent, and like a beautiful painting we can choose and accept emotions as a wide spectrum of color. In pain or joy we can apply learning, and appreciate that we have feelings, senses, and wide emotional spectrums. When feeling pain or disappointment we have no need to lash out and harm others. We are aware, allow feeling emotion without over-identifying with that state to points of overwhelm. Through emotional balance, soul healing, we do not allow any influential substance, i.e. drug, food, sex, shopping, to overtake us, or keep us dependent through emotional addiction. GSF, responsibility. We are accountable to our actions and accept responsibility for our words, commitments, and energies. We are realistic and dependable, only committing to that which we are capable, and are genuinely sincere. We are aware of how our language and behavior impact others, the environment, and act humbly. We are conscientious in everything that has our energy stamp, and recognize to create quality in our life and with exchanges. Quality is a byproduct of energetic responsibility. GSF, honesty, the ability to be honest with oneself, honest in the assessment of others, honest in the circumstances of reality, through a commitment to emotional clarity. Stating and representing the true conditions of circumstances as neutrally and harmlessly as possible. We know that honesty is always the true pathway in our relationship with God, that leads us towards spiritual maturity and freedom. GSF, autonomy or sovereignty, to achieve the strong foundation within the spiritual self to become confident in facing life decisions and making choices supported as a self-governed and spiritually motivated individual. With self-autonomy we do not need to manipulate or control others. Within the world context, it is the capacity of a clear individual to make an informed, uncoerced decision. God Source engenders the knowledge and growth to spiritual autonomy, when in partnership with divine will and service. God is your partner in love and parent in life. GSF, Reality Assessment, to be able to assess the current environment and conditions realistically, and truthfully, in order to make informed choices without needing to control the outcome or engage in power conflicts. To discern conditions based on internal resonance and not external judgments or mass acceptance. In the spiritual context, to feel or read the energy signature in order to integrate its intelligent information with the external circumstances, so that an informed decision can be made. GSF, Unified Cooperation, recognizing the interdependence between all living things, with the desire to engender cooperation between groups and all living systems. Cooperation is valued in order to unify the whole in energetically beneficial exchanges for creating holistic systems. Cooperation becomes the natural behavior to align groups synchronistically, in a naturally self-organizing system arranged upon a core spiritual mission or humanitarian philosophy. Unified cooperation is only successful in environments of honesty and transparency, where self-interest is sublimated to the caring of the larger group interest. In commitment to heart-based transparency and non-judgment, group trust can be formed and bonded. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a truth seeker. May we pray together for peace on earth during this holiday season. I am God, sovereign, free. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar Christos Sophia heart path. Please be kind to yourself and each other, GSF. With a loving heart, Lisa.